Anonymous has been challenging higher powers for over a decade.
And if their predictions for 2024 are correct, then this will be the year that the powers that be crumble to the might of the collective.
These are the top 10 scary 2024 end of world predictions made by Anonymous.
Internet censorship. Anonymous has a bone to pick with censorship, and just recently, Canada has passed this Online Streaming Act in 2022, a law which could effectively be used to control what we see online. Which doesn't sound like a doomsday scenario at first glance, but just wait till I get into it. See, the thing is, this act talks about removing internet content considered harmful, such as misleading political communications and propaganda. But what qualifies as propaganda, and who gets to make that call? Anonymous is concerned that this vagueness will give the government too much power to decide what's okay for us to see. It's easy to envision a scenario where this act can be leveraged by the government in power to silence and suppress political opposition or present a curated worldview to its citizens. A dystopian notion, to be sure. This is a big deal because the fact that they could use this to shadow ban voices they don't like or control what narratives we're exposed to will surely lead to a breakdown of democracy. Anonymous is known for targeting organizations and governments they perceive as restricting online freedom, so it's only a matter of time before they start firing back with a little something called cyber warfare.
The year 2022 was a big one for them, considering they managed to hack into different governments across the world, including Australia, where they leaked 82 gigabytes worth of emails that exposed the police protesting the detention of refugees. In Australia, they have a law in place where they can detain someone who isn't a citizen if suspected of violating the terms of their visa or not having a valid visa. So for them to be ignoring the mass amounts of emails is more than concerning for people trying to enter the country. But that's not all. They also hacked the Russian government as retaliation for their invasion of Ukraine. They blasted Ukrainian culture like flags, symbols, shows, and other parts of the culture across broadcast TV shows and radio stations. So not only did they have a hand in predicting how much is really controlled by the government, but they also exposed how far the government is willing to go in order to keep their plans from being exposed.
If you're enjoying the video so far, you could support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. Next up, we have cyber warfare. Anonymous is gearing up to cause some serious trouble this year through cyber warfare in an attempt to cause a government shutdown and collapse of the nation as we know it. But how will they go about this, you ask? Well, there are a number of different routes they could take. In the past, they've leveraged the gaps in cybersecurity, obtaining all kinds of personal information on government employees, like their names, addresses, phone numbers, social insurance numbers, heck, even credit card details, leaking it all to the public, with some even going as far as using those details to make vast donations to different charities. But this is definitely the easiest and least damaging thing they could do. The hacker group is so effective that even the president considers Anonymous a potential threat to national security, as they've got the capability to disable entire parts of the US power grid. Imagine your whole government, nay, your whole country, suddenly hitting the rewind button on technological advancement. No lights, no Wi-Fi, no TV, nada. That's just the start. Everything that relies on power starts working, just like your fridge, your toast, no more cold milk or ice cream. Computers are as dead as a doornail. Your phone, well, unless it's charged up, it's just a fancy paperweight now. Businesses shut down, hospitals struggle, and transportation grinds to a halt. No heating or cooling systems, no running water if you're on a well pump. It's like taking a step back into time when life was way less convenient. Then people start worrying about food going bad, staying warm. Heck, some might even get anxious about security because without power, security systems are going to be down and first responders are going to be hard to reach unless you're planning on sending a freaking messenger pigeon. So yeah, doomsday coming up.
Following that up, we have practicing Scientology. The Church of Scientology believes in finding self-knowledge and spiritual fulfillment through studying and training, and they believe that the body holds powers and abilities that can only be achieved after one has found one's true self. Well, in January of 2008, Anonymous released a video interview with Tom Cruise, who was still practicing Scientology. The church did not like this and filed a copyright claim because it was leaked without their permission. But if they aren't doing anything wrong, then what do they have to hide? Well, the video was taken down, and this was when Anonymous created Project Chantology, which protests the act of Scientology and actively sent them prank calls, faux emails, and blacked out faxes. They continued to protest in person outside of Scientology facilities as well, to get them to stop censoring free speech and free will, because the rules of Scientology are very strict and almost cult-like. For example, the disconnect policy entails that a person who is practicing must remove everyone from their lives who are being antagonistic towards Scientology. What the real unseen dangers of Scientology are, we'll never know, but if it was bad enough for Anonymous to get involved, it may be best to steer clear of the practice.
If Anonymous has an ultimate goal besides, destabilizing nations for the lols, of course, then they'd like to establish an anarchist nation following the collapse and abolition of the government. So how would this country be run according to Anonymous? Well, instead of big bosses telling everybody what to do, decisions would be made collectively by the folks living in the community. Cooperation would be key, as people would help each other out with everything from growing food to looking after each other's health and education. And nobody would be pushed into boxes based on who they are. Everyone could live as they pleased without anyone trying to control them. No more top-down structures, just fairness and equality. Conflicts wouldn't be dragged into courts, instead communities would band together and find solutions to patch things up. And money, well, that might not be a big deal anymore, as people trade stuff they have or just help each other without expecting something in return. Communities might even set up their own economies, focusing on what's good for everyone instead of focusing on, profit margins. Now, it wouldn't all be rainbows and sunshine. Figuring out how to keep things organized and safe without a big government conglomerate would be tricky, but in this world, people would be free to try new things and ways of doing things, experiment with different setups, and adapt to whatever comes their way. It seems like anarchy isn't as bad as it's made out to be, in theory at least.
While it may not be the end of the world, they have been exposing unethical police attacks since the 2010s. Some of these instances included them posting a video warning Mike Ferguson, the Missouri police officer who claimed the life of an unnamed African-American teenager, the Missouri political team, and the local police that if any other protesters were harmed, they would take action. Well, the chief of police called their threats hollow and refused to release the name of the officer who committed the crime. Well, they acted fast, doxing his home address, the names of his family, friends, and loved ones, and all their social media accounts, as well as his personal phone number. The same thing happened to the Hong Kong government, where they said that if any of the protesters were harmed, they would take drastic measures, including hacking all the government web bases. Instead of the government stopping, however, they just boosted their security as fast as possible and continued to harass protesters. In order to keep their own security safe, they jeopardized the lives of thousands.
Now, given that the hacker group quite literally relies on anonymity, hence the freaking name, it's no surprise that the collective is worried about surveillance going into 2024. Governments and big companies are getting increasingly snoopy, doing all kinds of shady things like watching and tracking your moves, and not just online in an attempt to hoard your information and sell you crap. I'm talking about biometric tech that allows CCTV to recognize you without even needing to see your face. Heck, even Wi-Fi modems have the capability to detect physical movements through walls by monitoring how Wi-Fi signals bounce off of you. You would think that this kind of thing only happens in dictatorship countries, but it's happening everywhere, and that's got the hacktivist group all fired up. See, all this surveillance isn't just about preventing crime or keeping things safe, it's a direct threat to your privacy and freedom. All the more reason to take out the power grid, so be prepared.
Following that, we have the amount of trading on the dark web. The dark web has got its name for a reason. Many different forms of shady deals go on there on many different platforms. Some might get into it through curiosity, while others use it for malicious intent. In February of 2017, a message popped up on over 10,000 Tor-based websites that said, "Hello Freedom Hosting 2, you have been hacked." Freedom Hosting 2 was essentially an internet gate that was for hosting websites only accessible through Tor. Anonymous stole 75 gigabytes worth of files and almost 3 worth of database information, a lot of which was worthy of arrest and imprisonment. According to Sarah Jamie Lewis, a privacy researcher, Freedom Hosting 2 was responsible for almost 20% of the information contained on the dark web. The fact that they can run such a wide network and not be found out for such awful criminal activity proves how dangerous it can really be and how it can really affect a person's daily life.
Next on the list, let's talk about Operation Avenge Assange. Julian Assange, the brains behind WikiLeaks, created this platform that was sort of like a Pandora's box, but instead of unleashing evils, it spilled out classified documents from governments and big corporations. In 2010, WikiLeaks dropped a bombshell by publishing a boatload of classified US military documents thanks to Chelsea Manning, a former intelligence analyst for the US Army. These documents exposed some seriously terrifying stuff. I'm talking war crimes like the ill treatment of detainees, civilian casualties, friendly fire incidents, and the list just goes on and on. Now, seeing as the government didn't want Julian Assange to air out their dirty laundry, they did everything they could to throw the book at him and lock him away, going as far as even inventing new laws after the fact in order to prosecute him. To say that the US government was gunning for him is a vast understatement. And they didn't just do so through courts. They attacked him at every angle possible, even forcing Amazon to boot WikiLeaks from its online servers, and getting PayPal, MasterCard, and Visa to cut off service from his organization, so he could no longer earn donations. And that's when Anonymous striked back. They launched a denial of service, or DDoS attack, against organizations that cut ties with WikiLeaks. Anonymous declared these actions as part of their advocacy for free speech and transparency, standing in solidarity with WikiLeaks against what was clearly government censorship.
And for our last point, we have social unrest and protests. According to Anon, while they certainly have the power to engage in cyber warfare and ignite the collapse of entire nations, they don't think they'll need to go that far of an extreme for their anarchist principles to be put into the effect worldwide. As the global economy begins to grow more and more unstable, and with governments and corporations becoming more transparent with their corrupt tendencies, social tensions, and protests are escalating across the globe, and the hacktivist group believes this trend of civil unrest, sparked by various socio-political issues and economic disparities, will only get louder in 2024. And the more the government attempts to suppress knowledge of these collisions of individuals rising up against conglomerates, the harder Anonymous will work to ensure these voices are heard. So let this be a warning to the bigwigs who think they can control everything. One way or another, anarchy is coming.
Man, between Anonymous and Nostradamus, it seems like 2024 is in for a world of hurt.
But we'll just have to wait and see.
As always, if there's a doomsday prediction that you think we've missed, feel free to let us know down in the comments.
I'm your host, Dana.
And I'm AJ with Most Amazing.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Later.